Alright, we got the hip bones, or the pelvic bones. They both have the same structures, so I'll just go over one side, and I'll choose the right pelvic bone. So, here's the right pelvic bone. We have the anterior surface, and we have the posterior surface. We'll start with the anterior. And one thing about the pelvic bone is that it's made up of 3 fused bones. Up here, the top portion, this is the ilium. On the bottom, toward the posterior, we have the ischium. And then, on the bottom, toward the anterior, we have what's called the pubis. And all 3 of these bones, the ilium, the ischium, and the pubis, they all meet in this cup-like depression that we call the acetabulum. So right here, this would be where the ischium would be. Goes right into the ilium and into the pubis. Alright? Now, the acetabulum, that's actually going to be the site of articulation for the head of the femur. So you can imagine the head of the femur is going to fit nicely into that socket there. Now, in terms of other structures, if we start here at the top, this is a crest, and we are on the ilium, so this is the iliac crest. Okay, and if we follow the iliac crest down to the posterior end of the pubic bone, we see these 2 processes here. These 2 processes are spines of the ilium, and the ilium has 4 spines in total. It has 2 on the posterior and 2 on the anterior. So these are the 2 spines of the posterior of the ilium. And so the one up top, this would be the posterior superior iliac spine. And the one on the bottom would be the posterior inferior iliac spine. Now if we follow the spines downward, we have this curve. And this curve here is called the greater sciatic notch. Okay? The greater sciatic notch. And when we follow the pubic bone down the greater sciatic notch, we're leaving ilium territory and entering the ischium. And this little process here, this is the spine of the ischium, the ischial spine. And if we follow that down, we have this lesser curvy bit here. This is the lesser sciatic notch. So greater sciatic notch, lesser sciatic notch. And if we follow that down, we're met with this bridge-like structure that we call a ramus, okay? And because we're in ischium territory, this is going to be the ramus of the ischium. Following down from the ramus of the ischium, we leave ischium territory and get into the pubis. So this is going to also be a ramus. In this case, this is the inferior ramus of the pubis, okay? And just superior to the inferior ramus of the pubis, we have another ramus, and this is the superior ramus of the pubis, okay? So, ramus of the ischium, going right into the inferior ramus of the pubis, and just above that is the superior ramus of the pubis, okay? Now, if we follow that up, we have these 2 processes here, and these 2 processes are very similar to the other 2 we saw on the posterior end. And so these are the anterior spines of the ilium. So remember how I said that there are 4 spines of the ilium? Well, we already talked about the 2 posterior spines. These are the 2 anterior spines, okay? So because this is on the bottom, this would be the anterior inferior iliac spine. And this would be the anterior superior iliac spine, because this is up top. And if we follow that back up to the top, we're right back to where we started with the iliac crest. Okay? Now, one thing that I should mention is this large hole here. And this large hole is called the obturator foramen. Okay? And in terms of bony structure of the pubis, that's really all you need to know.